The pandemic and then the war in Ukraine, this new decade is clearly off to a bad start, and things could get worse. In recent months, we have been reporting about the risk of a recession, and with every passing day, the projections are getting more grim. Tonight, we will talk about the US economy. Yes, the world's largest economy is flashing warning signs. Here's today's headline. The head of one of America's biggest banks has spoken out. Jamie Dimon thinks that a US recession is only a matter of time. He had a simple message for everyone. This is serious. What is Dimon worried about? Runaway inflation, sharp interest rate hikes, and the war in Ukraine. All these will push the United States into a recession, and the world will feel the impact. Yes, the pain of an American recession will be felt worldwide. What does this mean for you and me? In the next few minutes, we will discuss. First, let's scratch the surface a bit and tell you what is really happening to the US economy. The mood is certainly not optimistic. Let's tell you why. Some surveys came out recently. Nearly 7 in 10 Americans say they are worried about a recession. 4 in 10 say they are not prepared financially to handle one. That is, if a recession hits before the end of 2023. Even the business world is concerned. More than 8 out of 10 CEOs anticipate a recession during the next 12 months. KPMG conducted an audit. It spoke to more than 1,300 CEOs of the world's largest companies. 73% believe an economic downturn will disrupt growth. About 39% of the CEOs have implemented a hiring freeze, and 46% are considering downsizing their employee base. But what's driving them? The US economy is shrinking. The GDP of the United States is shrinking. Between January and March this year, growth stood at 1.6%. In July, it fell to 0.6%. So the contraction is apparent. Wall Street is going through a bad phase. The S&P 500 closed its third quarter at its lowest level in almost 2 years. Nasdaq has already dropped nearly 33% so far this year. Dow Jones has lost more than 20%. The impact of the downturn is already trickling down to the citizens. US mortgage rates have more than doubled in the last year. You already know what that means. Millions of Americans who wanted to buy homes will not be able to afford one. Why should we all care about any of this? Because if America goes into recession, the world will feel the pinch. I am not saying this. Well-renowned global experts are. Consider what a top UN official had to say about the possibility of a recession in America. If a financial shock in the US is triggered, there is no limit to the downside. The US ultimately had the policy space to shore up both its economy and its financial system if it finds the political appetite for more bailouts. But most countries in the world, especially in the South, have no real safety net. Let me simplify this for you. Our world is interconnected. So once the recession gets triggered in the US, it will put pressure on the global economy. America might be in a position to finance a bailout of the corporate world, but the rest of the world is not. There is a serious debt burden on many developing countries. Again, the United Nations is sounding an alarm about this. Here is another UN report. At least 54 developing economies are suffering from severe debt problems. They represent 18% of the global population. Over 50% live in extreme poverty. How big is this debt pile? There are some estimates. The developing world owed over $11 trillion in 2021. That is the big risk. On one hand, you have shortages and inflationary pressures. On the other, a massive debt pile. Even the International Monetary Fund is concerned about the present situation of the global economy.
World economy is like ship in choppy waters. We need all the wisdom we can muster to steady the ship and navigate through what lies ahead. In less than 3 years, we lived through shock after shock after shock. First, COVID, then Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and climate disasters on all continents. These shocks have caused immense harm on people's lives. Their combined impact is driving a global surge in prices, especially on food and energy, causing a cost of living crisis. And dealing with them is made harder by geopolitical fragmentation.
Geopolitical fragmentation. That is the biggest challenge right now, because a divided world is putting the global economy at risk. Here is an example of that. The great power rivalry between the US and China is intensifying, and it could affect your next gadget purchase. America has announced sweeping changes to export rules. Chip sales to China are being restricted. Companies would need to now get a license to sell certain kinds of chips to China. A ban has also been put in place. US firms will not be able to sell chips for supercomputing and artificial intelligence to Chinese companies. Beijing is unhappy about Washington's moves.
Out of
the need to maintain its sci-tech hegemony, the United States abuses export control measures to maliciously block and suppress Chinese companies. This practice deviates from the principle of fair competition and violates international economic and trade rules. It will not only damage the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies, but also affect American companies' interests.
Chips are everywhere these days. In your smartphones, your tablets, your cars, even medical devices. China is still at the center of tech manufacturing. According to one estimate, around 90% of the world's electronics come from Shenzhen. Before the pandemic, just one city in China supplied to the world. The American chips ban could dramatically change that number. Less supply could come through China, and that could mean your gadgets, at least temporarily, get a little more expensive. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.